Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. Amazon Web Services recently concluded its flagship summit, reInvent, in Las Vegas. The focus was squarely on Gen AI, with big-ticket announcements from large language models to next-gen in-house chips to ultra servers, all geared towards Gen AI. So what does this mean for AWS? What does this mean for its competitors, the likes of Microsoft and Google? What does it mean for India? I pose these questions to Swami Sivasubramanian, VP for AI Plus Data at AWS. Let me begin by asking you a tricky question, and I'll borrow from some of the mentions that you made in the keynote about Formula One.
Yeah.
So let me begin by asking you, which is your favorite Formula One team?
Oh, wow. Well, my brother will hate me for saying it, but I'm a big Ferrari fan.
Wonderful.
Because I think he's big into McLaren.
Well, that's wonderful. In fact, just a couple of months back, I had the benefit of a conversation with Werner. I asked him the same question.
Yeah.
He said, through and through, loyal to Scuderia Ferrari.
See, Werner and I are on the same page, of course, because we actually, I mean, as you know, I don't know if you know, he hired me into Amazon as an intern. So, and we had built some amazing things together. So I'm glad to hear.
I'm a Max Verstappen fan, so.
Oh, okay.
But yes, of course, Ferrari being one of the most successful Formula One teams. You mentioned in the keynote as well that Formula One is using the technologies with AWS to, in fact, process the vast amounts of data for seeing what goes faster. And speaking of processing, speaking of technology, let's dive straight into Gen AI. I think that's been one of the key talking points for a better part of the last 24 months. Everyone has been talking about it. So let me ask you this. If I were to ask a LLM, a Gen AI model, on what the biggest takeaways are of reInvent 2024, what to your mind would be the answer?
In fact, actually, I posted, I'm literally posting something every day on LinkedIn and others on what are the big takeaways every day. But I would say the biggest thing, if I were to summarize it, is we live in a very, very crucial inflection point in technology. If you see 10 years ago, AWS pioneered cloud computing. I should say probably more than 10 years ago, maybe like 18 years ago. And we changed how software is done. And how IT industry completely changed because of that. Now, with where we are with AI is, while there is a lot of excitement around like LLMs and models, but what it takes to actually build a highly successful and popular enterprise application and make it actually really useful is way beyond actually putting a single model together. Customers are running into all kinds of roadblocks like how do I deploy this at scale and make it affordable? How do I connect to all my data, not just actually text data, like data sitting in my databases or multimodal data? Or how do I actually now make sure it doesn't hallucinate? How do I build agents? So we have actually worked towards addressing all of these problems today with actually all the innovations we had done in Bedrock. And of course, the other big I'd call out is there are a lot of excitement around assistants for coding and for actually like productivity tools. The reality is, just take an example of like coding assistants. Everybody worries about, like talks only about code generation. Well, this is where we have Amazon Q, and Q is the best assistant in the world right now for code generation. But to me, that's not the exciting part. The real developers, where they end up spending is they spend only less than 20 to 30% of time on coding. They end up spending other time on things like testing, documentation, software patching, security analysis, operations, and so forth. So an assistant that only solves the 20% of problem is useless. You actually are basically solving the easy part of the problem. The harder part is the other one. So on Q is the end-to-end software development lifecycle. And we launched for the entire lifecycle. And that is like a game changer for developer. And we have done the same for business user on not just dashboard visualization, but scenario analysis and everything else. And also workflow automation. You can upload a video of what you do on a workflow, and then we will automatically build an agent to do so.
I also want to ask you a question on the big announcement that we had Andy come in on.
Yeah.
I think that's something that took a lot of people by surprise, him being there in person. I, for one, thought it'll be a virtual message, but he was there in person. And he unveiled the Nova family of language models. I just want to get a sense as to what inspired Nova. We already have a very large volume of models which were there on Bedrock.
Yeah.
What inspired this? Was this a move towards a demand that's coming from within the industry, from your customers? Was it a message being sent out to your competitors, the Googles, the Microsofts of the world?
I mean, if you know about Amazon, we don't worry about our competitors. We only obsess over our customers. Our inspiration for Nova is pretty simple. We think the Gen AI space is actually super early, and we have huge amount of experience and expertise in not just building these LLMs. I mean, we have built many of them that even powers the likes of Alexa even long before. The part as we built actually like our Roofer shopping assistant, or our customer service assistant, or sellers and ad assistant, we actually increasingly found more and more on what it takes to, what do I need from these models in terms of price performance, and what modalities do they need to support, what latency do they want. And we had so much learnings on what are these customer requirements, let alone various Bedrock customers we have learned. So this kind of actually informed us on what are the right set of model capabilities you need to actually launch like a very, very compelling foundational model. That led to Nova. And if you see the launch, and Andy actually showed in benchmarks, we are the best in class in latency and best in class in accuracy for many of our models. And this is an area where we are going to continue to double down, because this space is too important for us to actually not innovate.
Let's get a word in from India. I think that's one question that a lot of our viewers will be keen to hear on. You're working with a wide range of customers across various bandwidths, different market caps, different inspirations and motivations. Just give us a sense that when you look at India and you look at the AI aspirations that the country has, what to your mind will this journey look like? What to your mind are some of the challenges? What to your mind are perhaps certain strengths that you believe India has?
I'd say, first of all, I mean, whenever I visit India, I'm blown away by the pace of innovation when it comes to from the Indian startups and Indian ecosystem. I think in terms of actually what, take an example of like what Freshworks was able to do. They are like an amazing company, and what they have done with actually by partnering, they partnered with us, and they were able to build thousands of deep learning models, and they were able to move from what used to take like 2 months to even like few days with SageMaker. And they are able to build their Freddy assistant so faster and so forth. But I have like countless other examples on how companies are innovating with SageMaker and Bedrock, let alone actually we have many customers now leveraging Q to be able to actually move faster in the business. And even in like a remote like education technology sector in the nonprofit world, like what Rocket Learning is doing as an example, to empower like the 3 million students that I talked about. Now they are using AI tools. And again, we are talking about like nonprofit and other companies. They are leveraging AI to further improve the education for actually students in rural areas. And that is like amazing innovation, and I'm very inspired by that.
Any challenges that you see on this journey? One question that often comes to mind is the compute power. India is on a mission to create for AI what it did with the UPI for payments. It wants to create this foundational technology and then provide access to various startup, the innovation ecosystem through that compute power that they're looking to generate. Any challenges that you see in terms of perhaps not having enough compute power, or maybe not having enough talent, AI-enabled talent?
I think when it comes to India, it would be foolish to think we don't have enough talent in India. I actually think especially for a guy coming from Chennai. I would, let alone you've seen so much innovation coming from this space on this front. But I actually think there is an issue of these models are increasingly becoming more and more compute hungry. So you could make the case saying like, how much are we going to invest in compute for in every country and so forth. This is where I actually think there is a transformation and shift where especially we are starting to see many startups, even from India, actually working on fine-tuning these open source models across Llama and Mistral between SageMaker and Bedrock, and they are able to actually build innovative solutions faster. So not all of them need to build everything from scratch, which is a very compute-intensive exercise, and they can actually embrace the open source ecosystem. If you see the history of even many Indian startups, they embraced open source with Linux and they were able to move faster. And I can see that being a real path. But in all fairness, there are also other startups which are building from scratch and they are innovating on AWS, on our GPU, on Trainium instances to move faster too. I actually think innovation is going to be unbounded in every layer of the stack.
I began this interaction with a tricky question. I'll end this with another one. And this is a tricky question for you. And also, let me ask you this from the lens of, let's say if we were to ask a Gen AI model that is Chennai Sambar better or Bangalore Sambar better? Which one do you think he would pick? Or which one would you pick?
You know, my wife is from Bangalore, so she is going to... First time, actually, you've made me actually quarrel with my brother. This time, I might get into trouble with my wife. But I'd say, of course, Chennai Sambar is better because I think when it comes to Sambar, Chennai is always the answer. Well, I did agree with you
in the first answer, but I definitely agree with you with the last answer. This has been an exciting conversation. There's so much going on at reInvent 2024. We hope to build on this, and we hope to continue to be in touch with you. Hello and welcome back to our special broadcast on the big takeaways from Amazon Web Services flagship summit reInvent 2024 in Las Vegas. With Gen AI clearly in focus, what does the application of this technology look like? I asked some of the biggest AWS leaders in Las Vegas on issues ranging from cybercrime to digital adoption to RBI's concerns on digital readiness of banks to availability of AI-ready talent. I'm referring to cybersecurity, issues of bank fraud, issues of introduction of malware into devices, and that is severely having an impact. Everyone in the Indian government, if I speak, is talking about it in terms of addressing these issues. Are these conversations coming up more frequently now when enterprises, CTOs, CXOs talk to you about wanting to address this issue? Is this subject coming up more often now?
Yeah, so I would say that from an AWS perspective, from day one, we have always said and maintained that security is our top priority. And that has remained unchanged since the AWS first came in the picture to now. And we are actually very glad that because of AI, and especially the importance of the data that enterprises have, they realize now that their data is their differentiator, right?
Sure.
That data is going to help them stand out when they apply AI from their competition. And this is why they are a lot more leaning into protecting that data and asking us the questions about security. How can they actually learn from what we have seen with other customers? How do we actually embed the culture of security into AWS and how we think about and build it so that they can actually benefit from that as well? So yes, these conversations are coming up a lot more, and I think we are all better for that because security is a team sport, and all of us actually leaning into it, customers, partners, AWS, is going to actually help our end customers be a lot more secure.
Fair enough. We are at reInvent 2024, so let's talk about some of the big announcements. Andy Jassy, a big surprise. I think everybody was taken aback a little bit, and he again made big announcement in terms of unveiling the Nova family of Gen AI models, embedding it in Amazon Bedrock. The question I want to ask you is, what inspired this move? The reason I ask you this is because Bedrock already had a vast suite of models which were already there. The question I want to ask you is that, is this geared more towards perhaps addressing industry watchers and market sentiments? Because that is something that the markets were watching for. in terms of where Amazon stands vis-a-vis the competition, the likes of Google, Microsofts of the world? Or is it geared more towards perhaps the developer community, towards more enterprises?
Well, look, it was great to have Andy back. As I was telling you earlier, this is my 12th reInvent. I attended first 6 as a customer, and having Andy back again was fantastic. This is the announcement about new models is driven by what we are hearing from customers. Majority of the customers who are building on Bedrock and generative AI applications are actually using more than one model, because we have firmly believed, and we have said that from day one, that one model will not rule them all. Because based on the use case, based on the problem you're trying to solve, based on the parameter out of this triangle of accuracy, performance, and cost that you're trying to optimize, you might want to use a different model. And customers want to have choices. And this is why we were being asked by our customers to provide more choices in terms of our own models, while also making other models available in Bedrock. So this is really in response to what customers are asking us to do. And we believe that we have some amazing models in Amazon Nova family where it's going to actually be at a lot better price performance and can actually help with a lot of things that customers are trying to solve for, because we have been using them within our own businesses at Amazon. And we believe that a lot of customers will benefit from them, while they also can take advantage of many other models that are available in Bedrock as well. And we'll continue to provide choices to customers like we've always done.
So Amazon's not in the LLM race like some of the other players. That's at least the message that Werner gave us when he spoke to us in September.
Well, we are in the race of solving real customer issues and working backward from what customers are asking us to do. That's what motivates us. That's what drives us every day, is to actually find out what customer issues are and how can we actually help them solve that, and how can we actually help them make their end customers' lives better. That's why we exist, and that's what we're going to focus on.
I'm talking about the UPI implosion that we've seen with digital transactions. India has been a leader in many respects, especially in terms of providing this digital infrastructure, digital frameworks that we have. What does that do in terms of demands that it places on the BFSI space for preparing for this digital future?
Yeah, firstly, thank you, Ashmit, for having us. It's great to be here with you at AWS reInvent. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about what AWS is doing in the financial services space. As you rightly said, we are going through a massive digital transformation. Country is going through a big digitization. You mentioned the UPI explosion, and as per a government report, UPI is almost doubling every year. About 47% of the global payments, real-time payments, happen in India, right? So that's massive volume that we're looking at. But if you look at other segments like insurance, capital markets, it's the same, lending. We are going through this period of absolutely exponential growth in each of the segments. So one of the things that, like you rightly said, is that becomes very evident when we're going through this level of transformation is how can technology be an enabler to drive this digitization. And when you said looking back, absolutely one of the biggest things is demonetization was the first catalyst. And the bigger catalyst was COVID, when the country went through big lockdown, right? What brought to fore was the investments we had to make in digital channels. Because with the brand channels practically shut down, literally shut down, right? Everybody had to start investing in their digital channels. And that's exactly what we saw. And this is where cloud can be a big enabler. Because when there is a lot of unknowns, cloud, the model that we bring to bear, which is pay as you go, makes it very, very seamless. And if you build it to truly exploit cloud for what it is built for, which is, absolute seamless scalability. And what we have done with AWS is the architecture we have built, which we pioneered, is in driving a lot of resiliency along with it. Right? So it can help our customers, our financial services customers, build their products and services to cater to these needs of their customers very seamlessly and drive that growth.
Regulator, the RBI, has been very, very clear-minded in terms of taking direction, giving guidance to the industry that, look, we want greater adoption of technology. And to that end, they've not been shy of taking action, even against private sector banks, complaining that there have been tech outages, that consumer complaints are rising. Is that an indication? Is that a fair assessment that
perhaps the industry may be lagging behind in terms of tech adoption. Perhaps we need to do more. Perhaps there needs to be a greater growth in these digital spend on a CAGR basis. What would your assessment be?
Yeah, I think it's part of any transformation, right? I think, like I mentioned already, and we have talked about it a couple of times, COVID was a big catalyst. India predominantly, the banking industry especially, was a branch-driven business, right? And only post-COVID, the digital channels have become the primary channels of engagement. Even from a customer sentiment perspective, largely in the past, customers would prefer to go meet a human in the branch. And even those behaviors have slowly changed. So that gives the banks also some flexibility to invest in digital properties and drive a different experience with their customers. So in some sense, yes. But that's not for the lack of wanting to do it, but that was the way the banking sector was a few years back. And that has significantly changed. And as part of that change, unfortunately, we are in the transformation stage, but a lot of banks are on the journey, and we're very proud to be part of the journey for a big number of the banks in India. And they're all investing heavily. Like I said, the themes that we see is significant investments happening in providing better experiences. That leads to making sure that there is investments in data platforms, and then core modernization. Because when you have explosion like in UPI that I talked about, all of these are transactions that go hit the core. So banks are taking a very disciplined approach to modernizing the core. For example, HDFC Bank, I can give you that example. They launched Pays app in partnership with Zeta last year. And that core, the new core that supports Pays app, is running on AWS. And then they followed it up with launching the first fully digital credit card called Pixar. That's also very cloud native, built on the cloud, scales very seamlessly, provides a great experience for the customers. So the investments are happening. I predict that that's going to continue. And the regulator also recognizes that, and that's why the adoption frameworks that I've put in are, in a way, enabling and making cloud a viable option for our customers.
Is there a shortage of AI-ready human capital to support the AI aspirations of the startup community, of enterprise at large? Is there a shortage in India? And if yes, how do we bridge that gap?
So we recently did a study with Access Partnerships, and the finding of that study was when you looked at enterprises across Asia Pacific and specifically in India, most organizations, over 96% of them, intend to use generative AI. But what they also discovered was that 79% of them are finding it very difficult to hire people with the AI skills. So to your point, yeah, there's definitely a huge demand. On the demand side, there's no dearth of it. But when you looked at the employees, employees are just as keen to learn about AI, and this spans across all the way up to the boomers as well. So you would think that they were not interested, but they are also keen to learn about generative AI. So again, over 90% of them are keen, but 89% of those individuals weren't sure of what path to take. So one of the things we have done at AWS is to announce over 100 courses, and these range from courses for the business user to the deep tech specialist. So they range from for the deep tech specialist about how to use prompt generation and how to use some of the advanced RAG methods. And for the basic business user about how to empower all of their processes with generative AI as well. So with all of these courses, we intend to ensure that this skill gap is bridged in a significant way. We have a program called AI Ready, and there we wanted to get 2 million individuals certified and ready with AI skills, and we are well ahead of that target globally as well. The other thing we heard today from Swami was about the AI Equity Education Initiative, and there again we want to invest in underserved communities, people who don't have access to digital technologies, and make sure those children have the ability to become skilled. And in India, we have a startup called Rocket Learning, and they are committed to skill 3 million students in the country.
Thank you so much for being a part of this. Would love to connect with you again and wish you the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.